One would probably think, man, this guy has it all. And yet, tell us about bottom. Like, what was really going on?
So I started at 14. My drug addiction, this was by complete accident. I was in sleepaway camp. I had bad stomach pains. The nurse gave me this green liquid in a cough syrup cup. I drank it, and having a lot of insecurities and inadequacies, feeling of less than, being told I had a severe learning disability, being verbally teased by other classmates, and not speaking up about it. I think I took that with me. So when that green liquid went into me, the stomach pain went right away. But 5 minutes later, as I'm walking across the softball field with the counselor, this incredible feeling came over to me, this warmth where I felt like Superman. All those feelings went away. And I got back to the bunk. I'm the cool guy, the popular one, the buff one. And, I'm flirting with the girls next to the bunk. Everybody's laughing with me, not at me. And I'm not thinking anything of it. I go to bed that night and wake up the next day, do all my activities. And that next night I'm lying in the bunk bed with no stomach pain, but I'm obsessing at 14 on that feeling. So I learned how to lie and con in that moment, and I'd heel over. The counselor comes running over. I said, man, my stomach's killing me. We got to go back. And I did that for 3 straight weeks until mom and dad came up for visitation day and found out I was taking liquid Demerol. And a few months later, I'm at a dentist appointment, got my wisdom teeth removed. And 1 in 3 teens, which is why I love speaking to high school kids. It's my favorite group. That goes to a dentist appointment now and get prescription opiates, become addicts. I was one of the 3. And that same feeling came back from these 2 white pills that she gave me. And I had no idea what they were, but same sort of thing. Within 3 days, I was out of the pills. I knew I had a free pass to stay home from school and go downstairs. I put on the crocodile tears. I grab my cheek. I tell my mom I think I have a bad infection. We have to go back to the dentist. And as I always say, as a loving mother who wants to see their child suffer, right? And she took me back, and I lied and conned and got in the 3 days of those pills that I found that were extra strength Vicodin. And now I had money, a lot of money, from my baseball card business, unheard of amount of money for the mid-1980s, more money than my friends' parents could even fathom.
And you were like 16. You were like 16 years old in the mid-80s.
14, 15, 16 years old. Yeah, always 50, 60,000 in cash in my saved, but be ready to buy cards. First one to buy a car. I just timed it so perfectly to the point where I was the only one to have a cell phone in my town. Back then it was called Bell Atlantic. It was $3 a minute. It was in a battery case with a leather rubber antenna with a leather case around it. And I remember my dad would go nuts when he saw some of the bills because it was $3 a minute in between class. I'm getting phone calls from stockbrokers, lawyers, doctors, corporate business owners, executives, because I would advertise in the Bible of the industry, and they would tell me, hey, I'm looking for a Mickey Mantle rookie, or I'm looking for this. And that weekend I'd be at my shows buying, selling, trading, and I'd have my list of what people needed. I remember there's no cell phone photos back then, so it was amazing. I would almost kind of have to get a real photo printed and then either mail them the photo, or I would have to fax it to them from the photo to make sure they liked the card, and then the transaction would be made. So I partied like a rock star, though. I fully enjoyed it. I bought a lot of friends that I thought were real friends. I wanted to take everybody with me along for the ride, and for 6 or 7 years it worked, and at 21 it all hit a brick wall. I got arrested 4 times in 6 months, and all for possession charges, not for distribution, for personal use, because I was the life of the party. I needed the friendships. I needed people to like me. I needed people to accept me. I needed, around town and, around the country for people to realize that Darren Prince arrived. But, a lot of that was looking for an outside fix that was really an inside job, and I chased that feeling from sleepaway camp for 24 years. At the end, after an overdose, after not wanting to live anymore, 24, years of hell. I think at one point it did work. In the agent life, I was, fully hooked on Oxycontins, Vicodins, and Percocets, but then at a certain point, something that was using to live, living to use turned out to using to live. And I don't know when that happened, but those pills now became my kryptonite, and I couldn't function anymore. And now I was taking them just so I wasn't opiate sick or dope sick or going to withdrawal, but mentally from the neck up I was shot. And July 1st is when the magic and God came into my life in a way in the form of a woman, Andrea, that was dating my uncle at the time, and they were visiting my mom from Miami in New Jersey, paid me a surprise visit. Never met her before. I was just so sick and tired and broken, and she walked into my condo and said, "Am I okay?" And I said no, and she asked me what was wrong, and I told her everything. Completely honest, transparent, not holding anything back. And she's like, "Do you realize you're an addict and your life's unmanageable? Do you realize you're powerless? And now you have a disease?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Most importantly, I'm going to ask you to realize that it doesn't matter if you're Park Avenue or Park Bench or out of jail, that the disease of addiction does not discriminate." And that broke my soul. I started to cry. And she goes, "You want to do anything it takes?" I said, "Absolutely." And she put me on a 36-hour detox plan, which was July 2nd, 2008. I came back from the gym. I'm miserable, nauseous, throwing up, all the wonderful things that come along with detoxing. And I called them up and I said, "I can't do this. I'm calling the goddamn doctor to get what I really need to get." And they said, "This is a disease talking." My uncle grabbed the phone. "It's time you kick the crap out of it. Put your damn ego aside and get yourself to a 12-step meeting and tell these people you're sick and you're suffering, you need help." And I hung up the phone. I said, "No friggin' way. I've been to those dumb meetings when I was 21. They don't work." And now I lock myself in the bathroom. My then wife is hysterically crying, banging on the door. "Don't do it, baby. Don't do it." I know she thought I was going to try to take my own life or what was going on, because we cleaned out all the medicine cabinets of the opiates. So as I'm shaking to get some non-narcotic anxiety pills to help with the cravings, out come 2 extra strength Vicodin, which again was bizarre because we knew that we got rid of all the opiates. So where did these come from? And for a split second, it was like a gift from God. It was exactly what I needed. But then the miracle happened. I fell on my knees. I called out to God with everything in my fiber, my soul, my core. I said, "I can't do this anymore. I need your help. Take the money, the notoriety, the business. I need a single day of freedom." And I had a white light moment at the Caroline building in New York City, because I stood up and I flushed the pills. And as I stood up, I heard the voice that, "Got you and you're ready." And this burning hot sensation came across my right shoulder. And I go onto the computer in the living room. I found a 12-step meeting on a beautiful summer night. There was no Uber. And I'm looking up at the sky in the back of a taxi cab saying, "Oh my God, for the first time in my life, I wanted to get sober more than I wanted to get high." And I walk into a church basement with 150, 200 addicts that were all once in a hopeless state of mind. I heard the leader say, "Is there anybody new coming back or sick and suffering?" And this hand went right up, and it wasn't me. And I said, "I'm sick, I'm suffering, I'm suicidal. I've got all the outside stuff, but it doesn't mean anything because I don't mean anything." And that surrender, that gift of desperation, gave me the power of choice back in my life. And one day at a time went to a week, to a month, and then to a year. And what I felt in that moment at that meeting was a love and a support and a connection that I never had before in my life. A dozen spiritual brothers and sisters came over to me and told me so many incredible things. It's easier to stay sober than it is to get sober again. Let us love you before you even know how to love yourself. This is an ego-crushing fellowship. And when my hand went up, that's when I realized the agent life, the super agent job that everybody says or calls me, that didn't mean anything. This is what matters. And I realized that my ego needed to stay crushed. And then the real gift of it is giving the gift away. And once I hit that 1 year, and I realized I slowly had this foundation, I transformed my life one day at a time through the 12 steps and the 5 A's that I call them: attitude adjustment, action, accountability, and acceptance. And those 5 A's could be used in work, any transformation you're looking for in your life, your relationships, your health, your career. I just happened to use them for recovery because I knew it was life and death. And no matter what, I joined that club. Then no matter what club, then no matter what happens in my life, it's never an excuse to pick up a substance. And, and I've been through hell and back in recovery. I tell people all the time, man, I lost Muhammad, Ali, Joe Frazier, lost my dad, but none of it was an excuse to go back to that life, because you get this beautiful perspective and perception change that we could deal with life on life's terms. And I tell people that are suffering, mental health, whatever it might be, easiest thing to do is be of service. Man, I know you do a lot of it. And when you give out yourself so freely, unconditionally, without expecting anything in return, that's when we get out of our own head. And for me, those esteemable acts have given me the self-esteem I was looking for my whole life. Never came from Ali or Frazier, never came from Magic Johnson. Came from doing the work of myself and showing other people that hope and recovery exists and you don't need to be suffering.
How did you learn to have courage in yourself when you were, doing drugs and, I think you're an alcoholic. I think in the past when you were a teenager, maybe not a full-on alcoholic.
No, it's a drug problem. It wasn't an alcohol problem. It was a drug problem.
Drugs and just, kind of a deadbeat for
Thank you.
Off and off many years. How did you learn to kind of build confidence, though, so that you could be inspired in yourself to push bigger, to ask for more? How did you do that?
Well, first I quit using drugs. I mean, the order, everybody wants to get better and have confidence, but the first thing you got to do is you got to quit doing whatever's destroying your self-esteem, I'd like to believe that I can look in the mirror and tell myself I'm great and then I'd feel it, but if you're destroying yourself the other 23 hours and 56 minutes, the self-talk isn't going to matter. So I had to quit doing damage to myself. I hated myself. The worst part of my drug addiction was it wasn't just what the drugs were doing to me and the hangovers and the lost time, and it was the personal deprivation and degrade that I was doing to myself, and how many times I tried to quit. Lewis, every morning for 10 years, I said, today's the last day. I'm never going to use again. 15 minutes.
10 years.
9 years and 9 years and like 6 months.
So what was the deciding factor that actually made you quit?
I finally went, I had to go someplace. I had to change my environment. So I went to a treatment center in Minneapolis during the wintertime, late February. I was 25 years old and spent 28 days there in an environment where nobody had drugs. I didn't have access to drugs. And people were starting to talk about, okay, how'd you get here? They ended up putting me on drugs in the treatment center. And I'm like, I don't want the drugs, dude. And they're like, oh, no, you need it to detox, to get off. I'm like, this was 30 years ago. They've really ramped that program up now. It's the legal drug dealer now, is the treatment center. But the environment gave me at least, I was able to look around and see the damage drugs were causing these other people, men and women of all ages. And then that really solidified, okay, I'm stopping. But I needed one day not to use drugs because I had been using drugs every day for 9 years, 9.5 years.
Wow.
And so I needed the first day. Once I got the first day, I'm like, shit, I can put together 2 days. Then my head started clearing up a little bit. 28 days later, I go home to Lake Charles, Louisiana, and that's when the rebuilding really took place. And I had to replace all that drug time, which was a bunch of hours every day. This is what made me the beast, like the savage that I am today.
You had to put that time to good use.
Dude, I had so much free time.
Right, not being high, not doing drugs
looking for drugs, finding drugs, losing drugs, like lose them,
hiding the drugs. Yeah,
find them, buy them, lying to people, hiding from people. It was terrible. It was terrible. I did that for 9.5 years. It was awful. It's the worst part of my life. It's the darkest, worst part of my life. And so I had to crawl out. And then I replaced, literally, when I was 25 years old, I started every day with a meeting, and I ended every day with a meeting. I'd go to a Narcotics Anonymous meeting or some kind of 12-step program I'll bet you I did that for 15 or 16 years.
So you were all in committed. I'm going to a meeting in the morning and at night.
I'm going there to help myself and I'm going to help somebody else every day.
Wow, 15 years.
Yeah, and then that was my form of helping people. I'm like, I'm going to help other people that have this problem. That really kept me from going back. And then when I wasn't at a meeting, I was studying sales for the first 5. When I got out of the treatment center between 25 and 30 years old, all I did every day was study sales, do sales, or I was in a meeting.
That's impressive.
I would drive 25 minutes to work and I would listen to sales tapes. I'd listen to this one set of sales tapes I had. And I would learn I would learn the game. Like I would learn how to talk to people, communicate. And it was really communication skills. It wasn't so much sales. It was more logic, how to make sense of a purchase or an investment. And then sometimes at lunch I'd go to a meeting.